welcome to Time with the Bible Live, where we have been going through the Gospels, looking at different moments, different teachings, different miracles of Jesus. And today is we're going to be in John chapter 13. If you have a Bible on you or you have a Bible app, make sure to turn over there with us so you can follow along, and hopefully we can give some things for us all to think about and to be challenged by as we're trying to be disciples in our life and trying to imitate him. There's lots of actually lessons from what we're going to be studying today. Today we have back with us CJ. Good to have you with us again, CJ.
Hey, good to be here, Curtis. Thanks for. Well, I must be doing something right. You keep asking me back, so I'm
I
great.
keep. I, that's right. I keep asking you back on. Give me 1 second, CJ. I'm going to share this to the time with, to the Truth in Love page, which I'll get to later on. Let's see if I can share this.
Do, do you have. You should have uploaded your new logo to StreamYard.
Yeah, I guess I didn't, did I? I haven't changed that yet, but at some point I'll change it. You'll notice that the channel itself has a new name, but it's the same idea. I have some exciting things that I think is going to come up. Some things that I'm looking forward to. I don't know if you're all looking forward to it, but we'll do some daily like meditation kind of things, early morning meditation kind of things, some morning studies, and we've got a couple other things in mind to do with the channel. We'll also be doing more of those short little videos from TikTok. So I'm looking forward to getting back to that. I had a little bit of a problem with it this week, but I'm excited to get back on TikTok. And by the way, if you are on TikTok, make sure to look up Truth and Love and find my channel. And there's those videos, but there's lots of discussion going on in the comments. One of the things that I like about TikTok is that there's a lot of interaction, and there's a lot of other brothers on there that are also teaching some really good stuff. So I encourage you to not only follow mine, but follow CJ, follow others that are on there as well. I think you'll find that beneficial to you.
Boy,
Again, oh, go ahead, CJ. I'm sorry.
no, I was just gonna say, boy, that means I'm actually gonna have to start creating content again if you can tell people to follow me. It's been a while. I'm trying to do small things,
Yeah.
but I'm not as active as I used to be anymore either.
Yeah. Well, also check out CJ's YouTube channel. By the way, this streams to a YouTube channel as well. I have not changed the YouTube channel over to the new name. It's still Time with the Bible, but in the next couple days, it'll be switched over to Truth and Love. I'm hoping I can change the name. Haven't figured out how to do that yet, but go ahead and make sure to check that out as well. You'll find all the content on YouTube. And CJ, also, what's the name of your new one?
Theology matters.
Theology Matters. Check that out. And there's some debates and some reviews of debates and that kind of thing on there. I think
Yeah.
you'll find that beneficial to your study as well. We're
Thank
going to be, as I said, we're going to be in John 13. We're going to go ahead and get reading here. John 13, 1 through 5. CJ, do you mind reading and getting us started?
Yeah, I'm still in ESV. Uh, Now, before the feast of Passover, when Jesus knew that his hour had come to depart out of this world to the Father, having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. During supper, when the devil had already put it into, into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hand, and that he had come from God and was going back to God, rose from supper, he laid aside his outer garments, and taking a towel tied it around his waist. Then he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and wipe them with the towel that was wrapped around him.
All right. So let's give some context here because John gives us the context. He says this is during the Passover feast. You kind of remember from some of the other gospels that there was a time where Jesus told his disciples to go into town and to go to someone's house, and they'll have an upper room. And so they're setting in this upper room, all prepared for the Passover. And CJ, how, like, time wise, as far as everything that happens, how would you define how far away are we from the crucifixion?
We're, we're, we're about a few, we're, we're about maybe a day.
Yeah.
Uh, a day, maybe less.
Yeah,
Uh,
so we're the night of his betrayal, the night that he'll be arrested, because the Passover was that night, and then the very next night, or the very next day, he'll be crucified. So
yeah,
we're only hours away from the time when
uh,
Christ would be crucified. And look what it says. It says Jesus knew that his hour had come that he should depart from the world of the Father. So he knows the significance of the time. He knows what's going to happen. That he's going to go back to the Father. He knows that the sacrifice he's going to have to make here. And CJ, like, no, you already know the text, but what would be on your mind if you were told you had about a day to live?
well, telling my family goodbye and making sure well, uh, uh, I'm already right with the Lord, but really introspecting my faith, and maybe, I don't know, maybe having a few trips, uh,
Yeah, yeah,
see some last sights, visit some old friends, do everything I possibly could imagine on the last day.
yeah. I mean, I would be thinking a lot about myself. Man, I can't imagine. I'd be thinking about, my family. I'd be think all that stuff that you just mentioned. Myself would primarily be on my mind, but what's on his mind? Like you would think it would be his own death, his grief. You would think it'd be the suffering that he'd had to go through. Man, I could only imagine knowing that I was going to be crucified. That's different than knowing I'm going to die in a day. No, thinking about the misery that is ahead of me.
Yeah,
But what's really on his mind? Look at the last part of verse 1. It says, having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. So what's really on his mind, CJ?
his own,
Yeah.
his disciples. Which is really cool. Maybe this is off topic, but I'm studying John 1 on TikTok. That's the one thing I'm doing. I'm going live with another creator every Tuesday. But in John 1, it says he came to his own and his own did not receive him. Well, now Jesus has a new own, his disciples. His disciples are now his own. He is loving his own here. And so I think that's kind of cool to see that it shifts from uh, the Jews rejecting and not being his people, and now his people are these 12 guys who followed him.
Yeah, now he has just a few that he considers to be his own. Hi
Right.
Anna. Good morning. Glad you're on.
That's right.
Yeah, so now he only has a few with him, and his love for them. He's thinking about that. He loves his own, even when he's going to be the one that's suffering these horrendous things that things that you and I can't even imagine suffering. Um, and that's not to mention suffering because of the sins he was going to bear for the whole world and the separation of the Father. You can imagine what he would be feeling in this moment. But he's really thinking about them. And in these last few chapters of John, he's primarily going to be talking to them.
Yeah,
This is really the beginning of him teaching them lessons and preparing them for what's going to take place.
that's right. Uh, I think I think that is 14 to 17, and then the next section, 18 to 20, 21, is all about his death and his resurrection. So this is the last section before that. And it's interesting, John. Uh, uh, John 13 is one of many uh, unique features to the Gospel of John. In my recollection, maybe I'm overlooking it, but Matthew, Mark, and Luke don't cover this. It's only John that says he washes his disciples' feet.
Yeah, I think the amazing part. So you have the Synoptic Gospels that cover mostly the same events, but then you have John's Gospel, which really heavily focuses on this night, really. But it really focuses on the last, Jesus's last few days in on the earth. And like you said, 14, 15, and 16 are all chapters dedicated to this moment and this time. And so he's taking the time to prepare his disciples to tell them about some things that's going to take place. Obviously, when he dies and he's resurrected, he'll spend more time with them, 40 days, convincing them with miracles and with teachings and going to the Old Testament and showing them, proving to them things that they needed to know and learn.
Right,
But yeah, this is the beginning of him really focusing and showing his love, expressing that towards his apostles, because he knows that it's not going to be easy for them once he leaves. All right, so verse 2, supper's ended. It says the devil's already been put into the heart of Judas. We have Satan's last attack on him. CJ, what does it mean that the devil put this on his heart? What does that mean? What would you say that means?
well, it's really whatever that means. John doesn't spend a lot of time developing what that means. So whatever we say that means, a disclaimer would be we're not getting it because John has defined it for us.
Yeah.
So whatever that means, maybe this is uh, a non-answer, but I don't think John is concerned with what that means. Else he would explain it more. Uh,
Yeah. I
that's kind of a non-committal answer, though.
No, I agree with you. I don't think we fully grasp what that means. Now, some people will say, "Well, it shows that God made him do it, so God's not, God's really not concerned about free will." Well, I don't think that's true at all. And I don't think it means the devil made him do it. Some people like to say that sometimes. I do think, though, that probably part of what he's saying is part of what the devil put in his heart was already there, because we know from earlier chapters in John that it was Judas that was stealing from the treasury. It was Judas that was frustrated with Mary when she put that expensive oil on Jesus's head instead of putting it into the treasury so he could have his fair share. There was already something in Judas, this um uh this selfishness, this wicked desire within him that was already there. I don't think at all it means that the devil made Judas do it. Judas chose it. In fact, in Acts 1, when Peter's explaining what's going on, he says that Judas went to his own place. He chose to do this. Yeah, so I don't know everything that it means when it says the devil made him do it, but I do think I don't think it excludes the fact that there was a choice in the matter
That's right.
of Judas.
You know, we don't bat an eye in Matthew 16 when Peter says, well, I think Matthew 16, after he confesses, we don't bat an eye when Peter's rebuked and says, Get behind me, Satan, for you are not mindful of the things of God. People don't latch onto that text and say the devil was Peter, or the devil made Peter say that. But for some reason, they latch on to John 13:2 and say, see, this proves that the devil took over Judas.
Yeah.
I think it means the same thing Jesus means in Matthew 8 and Matthew 16. The devil was influencing Peter. The
Yeah.
devil was influencing Judas. So I don't know if that's a helpful comparison or not.
No, I think it is. As Anna said, the devil knew what influenced Judah or Judas. Yeah, the devil had to just play on what was already there. He
Yeah,
provided an opportunity and a time for for Judas to go ahead and capitalize upon that greediness that was already within Judas. So yeah, I mean, it is hard. I mean, I don't think we're going to really know everything. But in every temptation, there's a way of escape. That's what we're promised.
right.
And I think there was a way of escape for Judas, but Judas chose the wrong thing. Now, we can get into the fact that Jesus knew he was going to do it, that God knew this was going to take place. But that's the difference between God's will for us and God's invisible will, in the sense that God's providence, often we try to grasp how God knows everything, but I think God knows everything that's going to happen. He just gives us the choice in the process to choose what we're going to choose. He just knows what we're going to choose. He doesn't make it. He doesn't make that choice for us.
Right.
Bobby made a comment. He says, "Thank you, brothers, for the info of what Jesus was thinking about. But we must not forget Jesus was God in the flesh. It was human supernatural powers. Sure, he suffered with misery and agony, but I think you could take it much more easier than we could, in my opinion." Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. One thing that I do know is that Jesus committed himself to his Father's will. And when he had this option, of laying himself down, I think that he at any point could stop it. And I think he in his flesh had, probably fleshly desired to stop it all. I don't know. That's a challenge to divide that out between us, knowing where the divine ended and where the humanity began. But I think he was all of that, divine and human, and his human side had maybe the same struggles that you and I would have. And I'm not saying he didn't struggle to think about himself, because I'm sure that was something that was weighing on his mind, especially as you go to the garden. He's sweating great drops of blood, and he's in um this physical torture of knowing what's ahead of him. He just loves his disciples so much that he also has them on mind. Man, it's like being a father. Even though you may be suffering some, if your kids are suffering, they're on your mind because you love them.
That's right. This section is going to end in John 17 with Jesus praying, not that the cup will pass. That doesn't appear in John, I don't think. Uh, but that his disciples would be one, and those that they teach who believe in Jesus' name through the disciples would be one. And so it bookends with a love for his disciples and praying for their success. In regards to this comment, I don't know if we can say he used supernatural abilities to get through the cross. I don't know if you're trying to say that, but it just seems like it would be a big whoop if Jesus just dulled the pain.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
that, in, in fact, in John and Matthew, we see that Jesus didn't dull the pain and he was offered a drug to numb the pain. He wanted the full experience. And so, personally, I can't prove it, but
yeah.
personally, I don't think he used any of his God abilities to go to the cross.
Well,
Because
one thing we cannot deny is that he was living his life for this moment. Like everything in his life came down to this, and he knew that's why he came. And that's emphasized throughout John and even the other gospels as well. So he's prepared himself for this. Yeah, I don't know. It's man, that's really tough to work through the human side of Jesus and the divine side of Jesus. We know that he was all of that, but how they work together, it's very difficult.
yeah,
Yeah, great point. I appreciate the comment, Bobby. And Anna said, it's in the same manner that Pharaoh was influenced in the Old Testament, where it says God hardened his heart. I think that's exactly right.
that's exactly right.
Yeah, when we're talking about Judas here. But notice verse 3, it says, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, that he come from God and was going to God. Jesus, he knew who he was. He had come from God. God was the one. He knows that God has prepared him for this. He knows his inheritance. He knows he's going to be lifted up. He understands that this cross. He's known about the cross since he arrived. Basically since he was old enough to know, he knew what his purpose was. Um, so this was his glorification. His glorification was not like we think about in worldly terms, but it was humility, sacrifice, and shame. You know, the cross back then was a thought of shame. That's the way it was perceived. That's the way it's still perceived today. Um, but for us as Christians, we see that this is glorification. That he was going to be lifted up. This is one way that God was going to glorify him. Or this is the greatest glorification. All right. Well, watching from Mamba. I'm sorry, my screen's really tiny. Mombasa. Okay, in Kenya. Well, glad you're here, Martin. I had missed a comment earlier. Um, we had good morning. Good morning.
Right. But yeah, it's kind of an echo all the way back to John 1, you know. So, it kind of broke. Well, I guess I'll keep going. I don't know what happened to Curtis. But John kind of bookends this idea of Jesus coming from God with the Word. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. And now in John 1, in John 13:3, he knows that he's going back to the Father. And so this is a really cool bookend. Uh, he came, he had a purpose, and now he's going back from God. And so what does he do? He's eating the supper with his disciples in verse 4. He laid aside his outer garment, taking a towel, tied it around his waist. Then he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet and wipe them with the towel that was wrapped around him. So what does Jesus do? Jesus loved his disciples enough to serve them. He started taking the lowest position, a position of a servant. You see, it was the servants of the house that would wash the feet of guests. And John framed it in a way that, remember, he's from God, verse 3. And now the one that is from God, and the one that is going back to God, that high person is now getting down on the ground, taking off the towel, and washing his disciples' feet. John displays this by his words as the ultimate act of humility. Welcome back to your program, Curtis.
Sorry, my phone died. It wasn't showing me that my battery was low. It just my phone
That's
died, so
right.
I apologize for that.
That's
Some
right.
technical issues there. No, yeah, you're absolutely right. Like I said, his greatest glorification would be humiliation, and they are, he's displaying that here. He's trying to teach them. He's trying to teach them that when he's crucified, that's really greatness. Yeah, Chad, you're absolutely right. He's
That's
saying
right.
that the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give him his life for many. That's exactly what he's
That's
displaying
exactly right.
in this one act of humiliation. And again, it's this is he's still loving them and he's teaching them. He cares about them, and so he's trying to help them.
Right. Boy, did we eat up our half hour without even really getting into the text?
We did. Yeah, do we want to stop there and keep or do we want to keep going?
I mean, that's a really bad place to stop. However, there's still a lot here in the text. So I'll leave that up to you.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and stop there and we'll pick up in verse 6 next week. We'll do a part 2, but man, I appreciate all the participation in this. Again, that this is not about me and CJ, it's about all of you.
Yeah,
It's our I try to make it our study. And comments always help out studies. I That's why I like teaching Bible classes because I always get so many comments that are so helpful.
amen.
Yeah.
Uh,
All right. Well, we'll pick. I know that's a bad place to start or stop because he's getting into the meat of things. He's now
that's right.
displaying it for them, and he's about to teach them what it means for him to do this. But that we'll leave that for next time and do a part 2 next week.
All right.
Okay, thank you everybody for joining. We really appreciate it. Thank you, CJ, for being on. Glad
Uh,
that you were able to come and join as well. Sorry I cut out on you for a minute. We'll
no, okay. I've done that to you before on my
That's right.
program, so you just get me back.
There you go. Getting even. Yep. There you go. Vengeance.
That's right, vengeance is mine.
Vengeance is mine. No, glad everybody was on here. I hope you kind of give some thought towards that and go ahead and read the rest of the text. And if you read the rest of the text, you'll kind of get ready and prepared for next week too.
Or the week after, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. But hope everybody has a great day and God bless.